Congratulations on the purchase of your new WindGlider. In less than 1 year, WindGlider has become the largest selling sailcraft in the world. You've joined the thousands of satisfied owners who've discovered how much fun the sport of windsurfing can be. This product video will show you how to set up your new WindGlider and give you some basic instructional techniques. Just as anyone can learn to ride a bicycle, with the right approach, anyone can learn the basics of windsurfing in a matter of minutes. But first, we'll show you how to get ready to go. The WindGlider consists of two main parts: the board, that's the part you stand on, and the rig, the part you hold on to. Let's start with the board. The board consists of 4 parts: the PVC inflatable part, the 2 black semicircular fins, and a short length of line for tethering the fins to the board. Lay the board out on the ground. Attach the white valve to the large valve opening at the rear of the board. Tie the blue ropes onto the front and back of the board. Inflate the outer chamber of the board through the small valve on the back marked number 1. Next, inflate the main chamber through the large valve opening on the deck of the board near the back, marked number 2. Inflate the board until it's firm. For the best performance, you can inflate the board a little more after you put it in the water. Be sure, however, to deflate the main chamber slightly when you take the board out of the water, especially on a hot day, as the heating, expanding air inside may damage the board. There's another small red valve that serves to equalize air pressure in the deck chamber of the board. You normally leave it open. In case of an emergency, you can inflate the deck chamber through that valve. Close it only in case you need emergency flotation. Now turn the board over onto its deck and slide the fins into place. Finish by tethering the fins through the rope holder on the bottom of the board. Now let's set up the rig. Find a flat, clear rigging area with no power lines overhead. A patch of grass is best. Next, check to see that you have all the parts: the sail, the plastic part called the mast foot, the 3 straight aluminum tubes that make up the mast, the oblong aluminum part that we call the boom, and the uphaul. Thread the rope loop on the end of the uphaul through the small hole in the boom front end, and then thread the rest of the uphaul through the rope loop. Extend the boom to its greatest length. Next, assemble the top 2 mast parts. The thin tube, the one with holes in each end, fits into the middle-sized tube, into the end with the groove. Slide these 2 sections of mast into the sleeve of the sail. Make sure the top tube goes all the way to the very top of the sail. Lay the sail on the ground and place the boom around it. Now slide the largest of the mast tubes, the one with 2 grooves in it, into the lower section of the sail sleeve with the short 6-inch crimp towards the top. Slide it in from the top, taking care to make sure the rubber O-ring is positioned at the top of the tube. Slide this tube through the boom front end and onto the middle section of mast tube. Slide the boom to a height that will work for you, and then snug the rubber O-ring into position under the boom front end. The O-ring will keep the boom from sliding down the mast. Thread the webbing strap at the back of the sail through the loop at the back of the boom, and then cinch tight with the buckle at the back of the sail. Tension the webbing so that the sail is almost completely flat. Then loop the elastic end of the uphaul around the bottom of the mast. You can now finish rigging the sail in one of 2 ways. You can install the mast foot on the board first and then attach the rig, or you can attach the mast foot onto the rig and then attach it to the board. The best and easiest way is to attach the mast foot to the board first. Simply screw the mast foot into the mast step. 2.5 complete turns will do the trick. The mast foot will now rotate freely in the mast step. To attach the leash, thread the webbing first through the hole on the side of the mast step. Then thread the webbing up through the steel ring and down through the hole on the other side. Finally, put the webbing into the plastic fitting and pull it tight. Make sure that the leash is snug against the top of the mast foot so there's no upward play. Otherwise, the mast foot could come unscrewed. Check periodically to ensure the leash is tight. The mast foot is screwed completely into the mast step and the mast foot rotates freely. To attach the rig, bring the bottom of the mast to the mast cup. Insert the mast cup in the mast, loop the downhaul strap at the lower corner of the sail into the hook on the mast cup and pull hard to tension the strap. You can also attach the mast foot to the rig first. To attach the complete rig to the board, stand the board on its side and screw the mast foot into the mast step. Now tether the rig to the board by threading the leash as shown. No matter which approach you take, make sure that you pull hard on the downhaul strap so that it's very tight. Before we show you how to windsurf, let's talk about safety. If you want to do any kind of windsurfing, you should be a proficient swimmer. And even if you are a good swimmer, we recommend that you use a life jacket. Children in particular should use life jackets whenever they're on the water. If the water or the air is cold, you should also wear wetsuits. Protective footwear is also a good idea. It's always best to sail with a friend. Not only will you enjoy your day more, but if a problem arises, someone will be around to go for help. Finally, always stay with the board if you get into trouble. It provides flotation and visibility. If you become separated from the board, swim to it immediately. Now let's consider where to sail. A small protected body of water is the best place to start. A small lake or harbor is good, or a bay where the wind is blowing from water to the land rather than from the land to the water. If the water is 1 to 2 feet deep, so much the better, and you don't want to have too much wind. A gentle breeze, 3, 5, 10 miles an hour is fine. If you see white caps on the water, there's probably too much wind for learning to windsurf. Once you've found a suitable sailing site, it's time to rig up and go. Just as snow skiers have to know which way is downhill, windsurfers have to know which way the wind is blowing. A good way to tell where the wind is coming from is to stand the WindGlider rig up so that the mast is vertical. The sail will stream like a flag in the direction the wind is blowing. When you look along the line from the mast to the back end of the sail, you're looking downwind. When you look the opposite direction, you're looking upwind. Holding the mast in one hand and the rope on the back of the WindGlider in the other, carefully drag the board into the water. Be sure not to drag the board over any sharp objects. If you have to turn, make sure your back is to the wind. There are 5 easy steps to windsurfing: pulling up the sail, aiming, catching the wind, steering, and turning around. Step 1. Pulling up the sail. Stand with your back to the wind, the WindGlider in front of you, and the rig lying on the downwind side of the board. Now climb aboard. If the water is very smooth and you have superb balance, you should stand up on the WindGlider deck. Many people, however, find that the initial stages of windsurfing are easier to learn from a kneeling position. It's sort of like riding a jet ski. You kneel first, stand up later. Assuming you're more comfortable kneeling at first, you simply kneel on the board and quickly pull the sail out of the water, holding on to the uphaul. Hold the mast with whichever hand is nearer the nose of the board and stand the rig up so that the mast is vertical. The back edge of the sail will stream downwind, and you should be facing downwind. Step 2, aiming. Now you're ready to turn and aim the WindGlider. To do this, you tilt the sail. Tilting the sail is like working the steering wheel of a car. Tilt the sail just a little bit to the right. Notice that the board turns to the left. Tilt the sail slightly to the left, the board will turn to the right. Do this a few times to get a feel for how the board responds to the rig. Now that you can turn the board, you need to aim it properly. To do this, angle the sail so that it lines up with the G of the WindGlider graphic on the deck. Once you have the rig lined up with the graphic, look in the direction the board is pointing. Pick a point on the land or water that's the direction in which you want to sail. Step 3. Catching the wind. Holding the mast with your front hand, tilt the sail toward the nose of the WindGlider and grasp the boom with your back hand. Quickly grasp the boom with your front hand and hold the sail so that it catches the wind. Off you go. The trick here is to hold the sail at just the right angle to the wind so that it creates the force needed to pull you along. Angling the sail so that it aligns with the wind is like taking your foot off the gas. Angling it so that it just catches the wind is like stepping on the gas. Angle the sail too much, and it's like giving it too much gas and flooding the engine. How do you know when you're holding the sail at just the right angle? First, let the sail align with the direction of the wind so that the cloth of the sail is spilling the wind, flapping like a flag. Next, angle the sail just enough to stop the flapping. Do this often at first. Spill the wind, then catch the wind. Spill the wind, catch the wind. That way you get a feel for how the sail should be angled. This is a very important skill to master, as you won't be able to steer your WindGlider consistently if you don't have the sail properly angled to the wind. Step 4. Steering. Steering the WindGlider is pretty much like turning it. Tilt the sail one way, the board turns the other way. Tilt the sail to your left, and the board turns to the right. Tilt the sail to your right, and the board turns to the left. As long as you make sure that you have the sail properly angled to the wind when you're steering, you'll get it every time. Step 5. Turning around. At first, when you turn the WindGlider around, you should always turn so that the nose of the board goes in a downwind direction, not upwind. This means that if your right hand is in front, you should turn to the left. If your left hand is in front, you should turn to the right. Once you've figured out which way you should turn, you release the boom from your back hand and tilt the rig. The board will turn in the opposite direction. Continue tilting the sail. The board will continue to turn. All you have to do now is take a couple of steps across the WindGlider deck to the other side. Once the WindGlider is pointing in the opposite direction, you simply aim across the wind again and go. Sailing recap. Pulling up the sail. Grasp the uphaul and pull up the sail. Aiming. Align the sail with the G of the WindGlider graphic. Catching the wind. Angle the sail so that it catches the wind. Steering. Tilt the sail one way, the board turns the other. Turning around. Turn the nose of the board downwind.